A child slips under the surface, eyes open, mouth trying to scream water out. Two teenage lifeguards freeze, whistles hanging useless at their lips. The young manager's face drains white as he shouts for an AED that no one can find. Then a 48-year-old swim instructor in a plain one-piece is already moving, shoes kicked off, hairpin tight, body cutting through chlorine blue like a blade. Victim, airway compromised, she snaps without thinking. The arriving paramedic stares. Where did you learn that? She says nothing. If stories where quiet competence finally gets seen matter to you, subscribe now. Stay to the end, because what she refuses to say becomes the loudest truth here. The indoor pool at the Cedar Ridge Community Rec Center smells like bleach and damp concrete. Fluorescent lights buzz above lane lines that wobble on the water like pale ribbons. A wall clock ticks too loud. On the deck, plastic kickboards drip in a heap, and a faded "no running" sign curls at the corners from Texas humidity. Evelyn Hart moves through it all with the same precise economy every morning. 48 years old, Caucasian, athletic in a compact way that suggests years of carrying weight without complaint. Her blonde hair stays twisted into a tight bun. Her face stays calm, square jaw set, pale blue eyes scanning edges and exits before she scans swimmers. When a toddler coughs, her head tilts a fraction, listening. When a teen splashes too close to the gutter, her lips press thin, warning without words. She teaches the 8 o'clock kids class, then the noon aqua fitness group, then private lessons for families who want results. She never advertises herself. She never raises her voice unless it's necessary. And in a building full of chatter, her silence becomes its own kind of presence. 2 lanes over, the new manager, Brandon Pierce, makes his entrance like the pool is a stage. 29. Caucasian, sharp haircut, polo tucked too tight over a gym-built chest, smartwatch glinting each time he gestures. He brings a clipboard and a hungry smile. "Let's keep it high energy, team," he tells the lifeguards, Tyler Boone and Mason Keller, both 19, both suddenly straighter when he looks at them. Members pay for vibes. At 10:12 a.m., he corners Evelyn by the towel rack while parents watch through the glass. His grin stays in place, but his eyes go flat. "We need to talk about your pace," Brandon says, tapping his clipboard. "Premium clients complain you're slow for fitness." Evelyn blinks once, slow, controlled, then folds a stack of towels with crisp edges. Her fingers don't shake. Her shoulders don't rise to meet the insult. "Energy sells," Brandon adds, louder now, letting the room hear it. "We need energy, not patience." A mother near the vending machines, Jessica Rowland, pauses mid-sip, brows knitting as she watches Evelyn's face for a reaction. Evelyn's nostrils flare, just once, then smooth. She nods like she's receiving pool rules, not a public threat. Brandon leans in, voice sharpened to a blade. "I'm reviewing staffing after the noon class. Don't make this difficult." Evelyn's gaze drops, not in submission, but to the laminated emergency action poster on the wall, as if checking something only she notices. Then she looks back at him, expression unreadable. "Understood," she says, and returns to the water without a single extra word. The clock keeps ticking, the building keeps buzzing, and the next time Brandon raises his voice, it isn't about staffing at all. 2 hours before the collapse, Cedar Ridge feels almost normal again. The air sits heavy with chlorine and warm humidity, and the glass wall to the lobby fogs in soft patches where parents press close. The noon aqua fitness class thumps with muffled pop music, bass vibrating through wet concrete. On deck, foam dumbbells roll under benches, and the lane ropes tremble each time someone kicks too hard. Evelyn Hart stands waist-deep, facing a semicircle of adults who treat the water like a joke until she makes it work. Her voice stays low but exact. Heels down, ribs in, Breathe. When one man laughs and splashes, she gives him a look, pale eyes narrowing a millimeter, until the laughter dies in his throat. A small crease forms between her brows, then smooths as quickly as it appears. On the deck, Brandon Pierce watches like a judge at a talent show. He checks his smartwatch, then Tyler Boone's posture, then Mason Keller's. The lifeguards mirror him automatically, shoulders back, chins up, trying to look like authority they don't feel. At 12:47 p.m., Brandon claps once, loud. "All right, everybody, energy up," he calls to the class as if Evelyn isn't already running it. Then, to Evelyn, too bright to be kind. "After this, we're going to chat, real quick." Evelyn's jaw tightens, barely. She nods without turning. Jessica Rowland, the mother from earlier, sits on a plastic chair with a towel folded in her lap, waiting for her daughter's next lesson. She watches Brandon smile and doesn't like it. She watches Evelyn's stillness and likes it even less because it looks practiced, like a door being held shut with one hand. In moments, class ends. People climb out, dripping, laughing, grabbing phones. Evelyn steps onto the deck and reaches for her clipboard. Brandon intercepts her, close enough that his cologne tries to overpower the bleach. "Evelyn," he says, voice pitched for an audience. "We're going to make a change. The premium program needs a younger face, faster tempo." Mason's eyes flick toward Evelyn, then away. Tyler pretends to check the AED cabinet, fingers fumbling with a key that isn't necessary. Jessica's brows pull tight. Evelyn's lips press together. A tiny muscle jumps once at the corner of her mouth. Control, not fear. "My classes are full," she says. Brandon's smile turns thin. Full doesn't mean satisfied. Complaints are complaints. He taps the clipboard again like a gavel. "After the kids' lesson at 2, I need you to clock out. We'll call it a transition." He says it like he's doing her a favor. Evelyn's eyes slide past him for half a second toward the emergency phone mounted on the wall, the red handset faded from sun. Then back. "Understood," she repeats, the same word as before but colder now. Jessica stands halfway, then stops, unsure if she's allowed to step in. Brandon notices and raises his voice, performing kindness. "And hey, thank you for your service to the community, Evelyn. Truly, but we're modernizing." Evelyn doesn't correct him. She doesn't defend herself. She simply turns, kneels, and gathers scattered kickboards without being asked. Her shoulders stay squared as she moves, military straightness disguised as good posture. At 1:58 p.m., the children's class lines up by the shallow end, chattering and hopping in place. The air sounds different here, higher, sharper, full of echoing squeals. Sunlight from a high window cuts a bright stripe across the water, turning floating hairspray sheen into a rainbow slick. Tyler and Mason take their posts, trying to look bored. Brandon stands behind the glass wall in the lobby with a woman in designer athleisure, one of the premium clients, gesturing as if he's already won. His laugh flashes white teeth. Evelyn steps into the water with the kids, moving among them like a guardrail. She points, hands on the wall, one at a time. A boy with freckles, Caleb, grins too big, eyes sparkling with the reckless confidence of being 7 and loved. Evelyn's expression softens for a breath. The skin around her eyes loosens, then firms again as she scans the deep end. 3 minutes in, Caleb dares himself farther. A quick kick, a sudden slip. His grin vanishes into surprise, then panic. Water closes over his head. There's a beat, 2 seconds, where nobody understands what they're seeing. Tyler's whistle rises toward his mouth and stops. Mason's hands lift, then hover uselessly. Brandon's laughter behind the glass cuts off mid-syllable, his face going blank as he slams the door open. "Get the AED," he yells. The word comes out wrong, too late, like a line he memorized without knowing when to use it. Caleb's small body bobs once, then sinks sideways. Bubbles string from his lips. Evelyn is already moving. She doesn't shout at first. She inhales through her nose, sharp and silent, and her eyes lock onto Caleb like a target. One hard push off the wall, and she slices through the blue. When she reaches him, her mouth is set, jaw clenched so tight the tendon stands out. She hooks him under the arms and drives upward, her legs scissoring with power that does not belong to a slow woman. She hits the surface and says words that don't fit the room. Victim, airway compromised, start timing, she snaps, almost to herself. Tyler stares, confused. Brandon stumbles closer, hands half raised as if he might grab her and doesn't know where. Evelyn drags Caleb to the edge and hauls him onto the deck with a lift that makes Mason's eyes widen. Her palms plant on his sternum. Call 911, now. One word lands like a command. Go. Mason bolts. Evelyn's fingers tilt Caleb's chin, precise. Her gaze flicks to his chest, then his mouth, then the clock on the wall, micro movements measured. Her face shows nothing except focus, but a fine tremor runs once through her lower eyelid and disappears. Then her hands begin compressions with a rhythm too exact to be improvised. And as the first siren begins to wail somewhere far outside the building, Brandon realizes he is watching something he cannot control. 4 minutes before the ambulance turns into the Cedar Ridge parking lot, the pool deck shrinks into a single square of slick tile under Evelyn Hart's knees. Chlorine bites her throat every time she inhales. The overhead fluorescents flicker, making the waterline shimmer like a bad signal. Somewhere behind her, a child is crying, high and thin, while an adult voice repeats, oh my God," like it's a prayer with no answers. Evelyn's palms compress Caleb's chest with metronome precision. Her shoulders stack over her wrists. Her elbows lock. Her eyes keep cutting to the wall clock, counting without anyone seeing her count. A vein stands at her temple, then vanishes as she forces it down. 2-inch depth, she murmurs, not for anyone, for herself. Her mouth barely moves, her jaw stays clamped, a hinge refusing to shake. Brandon Pierce hovers 3 feet away, useless hands fluttering at his sides. Tyler Boone's face is wet, not from the pool, tears, sweat, both. Mason Keller has already sprinted for the phone, shoes squealing, and now the deck feels like it contains only one person who knows what to do. Evelyn tilts Caleb's head, opens the airway with a practiced lift that looks too clean for a public pool. She seals, delivers breaths, watches for chest rise like she expects a lie. Her brow pinches for half a second, tight, furious, then smooths back into calm. She switches back to compressions without hesitation. And in that rhythm, press, release, press, something older than Cedar Ridge pushes up through her silence. In her mind, the smell changes. Not chlorine, JP8 fuel, hot metal, dust so fine it coats the tongue, a rotor wash that turns the air into a physical thing, slamming against skin and gear. A night sky in Afghanistan that looks close enough to grab, stars trembling from the vibration. She sees herself at 28 in a USAF pararescue kit, helmet strap biting under her chin, gloves slick with someone else's blood. The world is a strobe of red chem lights and white IR markers. A downed pilot's voice crackles over comms, weak, breaking, but still trying to sound brave. PJ, I can't feel my legs, the voice says. Evelyn hears her own answer, steady as a hand on a shoulder. Stay with me, you do exactly what I say. On the deck now, her lips press thin, and her nostrils flare once, like she's smelling that dust again. Her hands never stop. A second memory drops in with a timestamp the way her brain stores trauma. 2 hours after sunrise. A village edge, a blast wave, a scream that ends too abruptly. Evelyn kneels in gravel beside a teammate, Senior Airman Lucas Merritt, eyes open, looking past her at nothing. The world narrows to the space between her fingers and his throat. "Evelyn," he whispers, barely audible. "Don't let me be the reason you hesitate next time." Her throat tightens now. Just a swallow, quick, hidden. She angles Caleb's chin again, checks the mouth, clears water, keeps the airway open like it's sacred. Tyler makes a choking sound. I don't know," Tyler says. Evelyn doesn't look up. "Time," she snaps. Tyler blinks hard, lashes sticking. "Oh, 1 minute, I think." "Keep counting," out loud. Her voice is flat steel. Mason returns, breathless, phone pressed to his ear. "They're coming, 3 minutes." Evelyn nods once. A tiny movement, permission, control. Her forearms flex, the tendons show, then disappear under skin as she resets her posture. She whispers something else that doesn't belong in a rec center. "Maintain pressure, don't chase panic." Brandon steps closer, voice cracking as he tries to regain authority with noise. "Evelyn, stop. We have liability." Evelyn's eyes cut up for the first time, pale blue and ice cold, and Brandon physically recoils, chin pulling back as if he's been slapped. A small muscle jumps in Evelyn's cheek, then stills. "Back," she says. One word, no volume. Brandon obeys anyway. The room around her becomes a set of details her mind catalogues automatically. The AED cabinet crooked on the wall, the red emergency phone, the laminated poster with steps too simple for what she's doing. She notices the poster because she's noticed it all morning. Because when people rely on systems, systems fail. So she memorizes where the seams are. Breadcrumb number 4 snaps into focus for the audience even if nobody on deck understands it. Evelyn doesn't follow the poster's order. She follows a different order. A combat order, airway breathing, circulation, delivered in her hands, not in her words. She pauses compressions only long enough to reassess. 2 fingers at the carotid, eyes on the chest, then immediately back to work. Her lower eyelid trembles again. A quick betrayal, and she crushes it with a blink. A philosophical truth sits behind her restraint like a locked door. Some people survive by becoming quiet, not because they have nothing to say, because saying it once cost them something they can't afford to lose again. She doesn't talk about the desert because the desert never stops talking back. She doesn't say PJ because the moment she says it, she sees Lucas Merritt's eyes again. She doesn't announce her competence because she learns early that announcing draws attention, and attention draws fire. The siren grows louder, bending around the building. The sound threads into the pool room like a needle. Jessica Rowland, standing near the shallow end, hands over her mouth, whispers, "Please, please," and her knees start to buckle. She catches herself on a bench, eyes glued to Evelyn's hands. Evelyn's voice stays clipped, controlled. "Mason, clear the deck." Tyler, Count, Brandon, get towels, now. Brandon blinks, stunned that he's being assigned tasks like an underling. His lips part, searching for a protest, but none comes. He grabs towels with shaking fingers anyway. Evelyn's mouth tightens, then softens for a fraction as she feels something, anything change under her palms. Not hope. Data. A response. Her eyes flick to the clock again. Another micro-movement. Another internal timestamp. And just as the echo of running footsteps hits the tile outside the pool room, just as the door begins to swing wide, Evelyn hears a voice in her head that isn't memory. It's warning. Don't let them make this about you. She keeps working, silent as a machine, knowing the next question is coming the moment a real medic sees her hands. Beyond the individual experience of Evelyn, the reality of battlefield-style trauma training appearing in civilian emergencies is anchored in documented history. Tactical Combat Casualty Care, TCCC, is introduced in the 1990s and becomes a major military standard during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. A 2013 Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care report notes preventable causes like extremity hemorrhage and airway obstruction as key targets of TCCC protocols, Defense Health Agency, (TCCC). These lessons increasingly inform civilian stop-the-bleed efforts, though gaps in public training remain. The door slams fully open. Cold air rushes in from the lobby, carrying the metallic smell of rain on asphalt and the sharp snap of urgency. A stretcher wheel squeals. Boots hit tile. Evelyn doesn't look up. She doesn't need to, because she knows what the first competent pair of eyes will see and what they'll ask. And she already decides, in the same quiet place she keeps everything else, that she isn't going to answer easily. The paramedics flood in moments, and the air in the pool room changes, cooler, sharper, laced with wet asphalt and antiseptic as their jackets shed rain. A stretcher clips the doorframe. A radio squawks. The overhead lights glare off puddled tile, turning every footprint into a bright smear. Lead medic. Daniel Rourke. Moves first, mid-30s, Caucasian, close-cropped hair. Army posture that never leaves the spine. His eyes take one sweep. Kid on deck, bystanders panicking, manager useless, and Evelyn Hart, kneeling like she belongs there. He drops beside her without asking permission. Time down, Rourke demands. Tyler's voice shakes. Two minutes, Evelyn doesn't look up. Her hands never break rhythm. 2 minutes, 40 seconds, she says, flat and exact. Rourke's gaze snaps to her face, just a flicker, then back to Caleb. He watches her sequence for half a heartbeat, and something tightens in his mouth, like recognition biting down. "You're running this like TCC," he says, low. "Who are you?" Evelyn's jaw shifts once, a controlled grind, then stills. She keeps compressions. "Get pads ready," she says. Brandon Pierce tries to reclaim oxygen with noise. He steps forward, palms out. Hey, she's staff. We have protocols, liability." Rourke doesn't even turn his head. "Sir, back up." The words come out calm, but they land like a door slamming. Brandon freezes. His lips part. No sound comes. He retreats half a step anyway, eyes darting like he's searching for someone older to tell him what to do. Rourke slides the AED pads into place with practiced speed, nodding to his partner. "Clear on my count." He glances at Evelyn again, her posture stacked, shoulders square, breath steady. A tiny tremor runs at the corner of her eye and disappears under a blink. "Clear," Rourke says. The shock hits. Caleb's body jerks. A mother's sob cracks open behind them. Evelyn is already back on compressions, as if the electricity is just another instruction. "Continue," she says. Rourke's voice drops, urgent now. "Where did you learn that airway work? That head tilt, chin lift, your timing? That's operator level. That is not Red Cross." He stares at her profile. "Where did you learn that?" Evelyn's silence is immediate and total. Her mouth stays closed. Her eyes stay on Caleb's chest. That's breadcrumb number 5 clicking into place. The laminated poster Brandon waves around all morning suddenly looks like a children's drawing compared to what Evelyn is doing, sequence, cadence, command tone, and that earlier phrase that slipped out of her like muscle memory. Victim, airway compromised. Rourke's partner checks for a pulse. "I've got something. Faint." Evelyn pauses just long enough to confirm, 2 fingers at the carotid. Then she exhales through her nose, one controlled release, like letting pressure out of a valve. Her shoulders drop a millimeter, not relief, confirmation. The crowd behind the glass erupts into confused noise. Phones lift. Someone whispers, "Who is she?" And then a new voice cuts through, female, firm, carrying the kind of authority that doesn't need volume. "Evelyn?" "Bye." Lieutenant Colonel Allison Ward steps onto the wet tile in running shoes and a damp base hoodie, hair pulled back tight, eyes sharp as she takes in the scene. She stops like she hits an invisible line, looking straight at Evelyn's face. Evelyn finally looks up. For a fraction of a second, something crosses her features, recognition that hurts. Her lips press together, then soften. The smallest nod. Colonel Ward's spine goes rigid. Her hand rises without hesitation. A crisp salute. Delivered in front of children, parents, lifeguards, and the manager who tries to fire Evelyn. 2 hours earlier. "Ma'am," Ward says, voice steady. "Para-rescue. I know you." Brandon's cheeks drain again, but this time it isn't panic, it's understanding. His throat works like he's trying to swallow his own words from this morning. Rourke looks from the salute to Evelyn's hands to her face, and the question comes out quieter, almost respectful. "Your Air Force PJ." Evelyn doesn't confirm it. She doesn't deny it. She just turns back to Caleb as the team lifts him onto the stretcher, and while the wheels start to roll, while the boy's mother collapses into grateful sobs, Evelyn wipes her palms on a towel Brandon brings too late. Eyes distant, expression sealed, knowing the room is about to demand a story she refuses to perform. 30 minutes after the ambulance leaves, the Cedar Ridge pool room smells different. Less chlorine, more disinfectant and damp towels. The pop playlist is off. Without music, the building's small noises sound accusatory. A mop bucket sloshing, a radio clicking, the faraway thud of a basketball in the gym. Water still ripples where nobody swims, lane lines rocking like they can't settle. Brandon Pierce stands near the office door with his clipboard held too tight, knuckles paling. His earlier confidence has collapsed into a brittle smile that won't form right. He keeps clearing his throat, eyes flicking from the wet tile to the parents gathered in the lobby like witnesses in a courtroom. When he spots Daniel Rourke still inside, still watching, Brandon's lower eyelid twitches, and he looks away fast. Evelyn Hart sits on a bench by the shallow end, forearms resting on her thighs, posture straight even while she's still dripping. Her face looks carved back into calm. Only her fingers betray her, flexing once, then curling into a fist and relaxing again, like she's forcing her body to accept that the sprint is over. Jessica Rowland approaches first, towel clutched to her chest. Her cheeks are blotchy, eyes swollen, but her voice is steady in a way it wasn't during the chaos. "You saved my son," she says, each word careful, like she's afraid to disturb something holy without naming it. "I watched you. You didn't panic." Evelyn's gaze lifts. A tight swallow moves her throat, her eyes shine for half a second, then harden into control. "He did the hard part," she says, nodding toward the door the stretcher went through. "He held on." Behind Jessica, Tyler Boone and Mason Keller stand shoulder to shoulder, both in red lifeguard shirts that suddenly look like costumes. Tyler's lips tremble as he tries to speak. Mason's jaw works, chewing air. "I froze," Tyler blurts. His ears turn red. I couldn't." Evelyn's mouth tightens, then eases. She doesn't soften into pity. She steadies into instruction. "You're 19, she says. "Your brain does what it knows. If you want it to do something else, you train it." Her eyes lock on both of them. "Tomorrow morning, before opening, you meet me here." Mason nods too fast. "Yes, ma'am." The word slips out before he can stop it. His shoulders snap back, startled at himself. Brandon hears it. The ma'am. The deference. His face pinches, then he pushes forward, trying to wedge himself back into the center. "Okay," Brandon says loudly, voice pitched for the parents' phones. "Let's all take a breath. Amazing outcome, truly. But we have to be careful about procedures. Social media is all ready." Lieutenant Colonel Allison Ward turns toward him the way a blade turns toward light. Her base hoodie is still damp at the cuffs. Her expression is dry as stone. "Procedures," she repeats. Brandon's smile falters. I'm just saying, from a management standpoint. Colonel Ward takes one step closer. Not aggressive, final. From a command standpoint, she says, you nearly fired the most qualified person in this building because you confused volume with competence. Brandon laughs once, sharp and wrong. That's not what happened. Daniel Rourke finally speaks, voice even, eyes unreadable. I was here when you tried to pull her off the resuscitation for liability, he says, and I'm documenting that. He lifts his tablet slightly, just enough for Brandon to see the screen. Timestamps, witnesses. Brandon's throat tightens, his tongue wets his lips. A fine sheen of sweat breaks at his hairline despite the cold air conditioning. You can't, this is a recreation center. Colonel Ward's gaze doesn't blink. DIAS AFB partners with this county on emergency readiness, she says, and your board receives federal grant money. You want a conversation about accountability? We can have it in writing. Brandon's clipboard shifts in his hands like it's suddenly heavy. His eyes dart toward the lobby, toward the premium client who had been laughing with him earlier. She stands with arms crossed now, mouth tight, watching him like a stranger. When Brandon tries to catch her eye, she looks straight past him. The rec center director arrives. Gregory Harlan, late 50s, gray hair, polo shirt still creased from a desk day. He stops at the threshold, taking in the wet tile, the silence, the uniformed authority of Ward's posture, the medic's tablet, the parents' faces. His eyebrows lift, then pull together. Brandon, Harlan says quiet. My office. Now. Brandon opens his mouth. Nothing comes out at first, then, Sir, Harlan's jaw sets. Now. Brandon walks away, shoulders shrinking by the step, as if the hallway drains him of inches. The lobby parts to let him pass. No one speaks to him. Jessica's stare follows him like a verdict. Evelyn watches none of it. She looks at the pool instead, at the floating toys drifting near the lane rope. A plastic ring rocking gently. Her breath finally shudders once, contained like a crack in a dam that reseals immediately. She wipes water from her cheek with the back of her hand and makes it look like nothing. Colonel Ward comes closer, lowering her voice so it's just for Evelyn. They're going to make this a headline, she says. They're going to want the hero version, the shareable version. Evelyn's mouth presses into a line, the smallest shake of her head. I don't want it, she says. Ward studies her, eyes softening at the corners, then sharpening again with respect. You never did, she replies. That doesn't mean they get to bury you. Evelyn stands, shoulders square, and for the first time since the collapse, she lets her eyes sweep the room. Parents, lifeguards, phones, wet footprints, the curled emergency poster on the wall. Her gaze lands on Tyler and Mason. Tomorrow, she repeats quiet. The word isn't a threat, it's a promise. And as the director's office door shuts somewhere down the hall with a dull, final click, Brandon's fate begins to catch up to him, while Evelyn, soaked and silent, becomes impossible to ignore. 1 week later, 6:03 a.m., the Cedar Ridge pool feels scrubbed raw. The air is cold enough to sting the lungs. The chlorine sits sharp and clean, layered over lemon disinfectant. Lane lines lie perfectly still. A single ceiling fan clicks with each rotation. Evelyn Hart stands at the shallow end in a plain zip-up warm-up, hairpin tight, whistle untouched on the lanyard. Her eyes track the water's edge the way other people track headlines. When a child shivers, her hand lifts, 2 fingers quietly signaling closer. She teaches back float like it is a life skill and a promise. Ears in, she says, belly up, trust the water. Tyler Boone and Mason Keller arrive early like she ordered. Tyler's jaw trembles once before he steadies it. Mason's shoulders square too fast, then ease. They don't ask about Afghanistan. They don't ask about the salute. They just watch her timing and copy it, blink by blink. Jessica Rowland appears near the door with a folded note. No camera, no gratitude speech. Her mouth quivers, then firms. "He's home," she whispers. Evelyn takes the paper, reads it without moving her lips, and her throat tightens, one controlled swallow. She folds it twice and slides it into her pocket like it belongs there. Beyond the individual experience of Evelyn, the reality of drowning and sudden cardiac events in pools is anchored in documented public health patterns. The CDC reports drowning remains a leading cause of unintentional injury death for children ages 1 to 4, and it is also among the leading causes for ages 5 to 14, CDC, WSCARS. Programs like formal swim lessons and layered supervision reduce risk, but inconsistent training and delayed CPR still drive preventable outcomes. The rec center offers to film a tribute. Evelyn shakes her head once. "Teach them," she says instead, nodding at the kids. The loudest truth is still quiet. Competence doesn't announce itself until the day everyone needs it.